Hello everybody, my name is Arthur Chachawa. I'm a customer support specialist, senior specialist at Autodesk Product Support team, specialized in installation and licensing of Autodesk products. During this current webinar, we're going to go through how to set up a license server on Mac OS X and the Linux platform. The presentation will have two moderators, as myself, Apto, and David Mkowski. So during the webinar session, you're welcome to kind of ask the questions while the webinar is ongoing. There is a webinar panel on your right-hand side where is the chat option for you to ask the question during the webinar, and David's going to take those questions and answer as they come in. If for any reason there is a question which we're not able to answer during this webinar session, we will answer it later through the forum posts which we have dedicated for the webinar. The current webinar is 11th webinar through the series of Build Your Autodesk Installation IQ, or also called as Build Your Autodesk Platform Ready Knowledge. So on your screen right now you see all the webinars we have done before today. That's where the network licensing related webinar where we talked about the server setup, license file creation, specifically how to get the network license file, product installation, deployment skills, and analyzing the log file, and troubleshooting the licensing issues, troubleshooting the installation problems, and clean uninstallation of Autodesk products from Mac OS X as well as from Windows platform. Following webinar, the next week webinar, will be related to troubleshooting desktop subscription licensing issues. Desktop subscription, that he also called as a term-based licensing, also called as a rental or meta licenses. That's going to come, will be coming in the next week, so you're welcome to join the webinar as well. And the week after next week, meaning the last week of January, we will have just a summarized webinar session where we're going to go through all the webinars we have done, all those 12 webinars which we will have done by the end of the January, and we're going to take all the questions you may have. We're going to take your suggestions, how to improve these webinar sessions, and after that we're going to redo the webinars. We're going to go through it over and over again, and so that everybody who is registered to the webinar sessions, they will be able to kind of build Autodesk installation licensing knowledge. Previous webinars you guys can find into the YouTube channel. So if you just click on this link, you're going to go to a YouTube channel, and there is all the webinars which were recorded during this session. Here is all the webinars for you. Okay. So let me kind of close this one out and go back to the slides. And current webinar files, PowerPoint slides, will be available after completing the webinar at the following URL. It's autodesk.box.com OpenReady IQ 11. Now, if you were to look to the previous webinar PowerPoint slides or supporting documentation or files, you just have to kind of switch the 11 to 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, and so forth, and thus you're going to reach to the very first webinar and obtain the files related to it. You can also register the webinars, webinar series. That's basically we just register once, and anytime the webinar is available, you're going to receive the reminder for you to kind of go and attend the webinar. Current time now, it's comes to poll question, and I'll ask David to send the poll. So the poll should say, if you have ever installed a license server or set up a license server on Mac OS X or on a Linux platform. So the questions are yes or no, and we would like to kind of know how many of you from today's webinar attendees have ever worked on these platforms. Typically, there's only few people who for some reason select the Mac or Linux as their license server platform. But mostly, all and majority of our customers, they use Windows. And if you use the Windows, there's really no any like any advice you to kind of switch to the Mac. But we're going to go through it. We're going to show you how to set it up. So as the answer says, the 92% majority of you, probably close to 100, nobody never ever done to set up a license server on the Mac. That's fine. Thank you, and that's today's webinar aim to prepare you in case you ever need to set up on these two platforms. Basically, as you know, up until now, license server is supported on 3 different platforms like Windows, Mac, and Linux. Now the Windows, and each version of the license server is supported on a different operating system and different has their own system requirements, the minimum system requirements where each system, whether regardless of the platform, has to meet. Before setting up a license server, as normally you would need to select a licensing server mode, whether it's going to be a single license server, distributed, or redundant license server. If it's a single, that means all your licenses will be served from a single license server, from that particular license server. If it's a distributed license server, that means you can split your licenses between 2, 3, 4, or as many licenses you would like to have, license servers you would like to have on your network. Or if it's the redundant license server, that means that you need to have like 3 identical systems, install the 3 identical versions of the LM tools, like the license manager tools, and have 3 identical license files, and they can work as a single license server. So basically, if you have a redundant license server, the first one is the main license server, which needs to be always up and running. But if for any reason it crashes, then 2 remaining license servers should form the quorum and take distributing the licenses from then on until you restore your license server, the first one. The most common license server modes are single and distributed. So to set up license server, again, whether it's Windows, Mac, or Linux, you need to have your serial number, you need to have your system name, like computer server name, you need to have the MAC address of your license server, and then you need to obtain the license server through the Autodesk, whether it's you can open up a case through Subscription Center, or you just go yourself and online tools such as registeronce.autodesk.com. We can see a link on the screen. We'll let you log on to the specific site to generate your licenses. Autodesk also has lots of documentation about how to set up a license servers on each platform. So it's whether it's the documentation, which comes from the installation menu, like for example here you can see, how to set up a license server on a Mac, how to set up on a Linux, and how to set up on Linux, on Windows, and so on and so forth. So that's also kind of like really like really the documentation which for some reason lots of people try to avoid to read. For those type of people, we have really user-friendly way of writing it through our blog sites. You have probably seen and visited our blogs such as upandreadytypepad.com. Let me go there. So there you go. So that's our blog site. So on the blog site, there's a quick start sections, where we usually kind of put quickly whatever the steps one has to do to either install the products or accomplish certain tasks on their system with Autodesk software. So here is a kind of again, the PowerPoint contains the links, the hyperlinks, which are going to take you to the corresponding blog posts, related to the license server setup on a Mac or on a Linux. And this is a very granularly written, everything really kind of detailed, what one needs to do to kind of, have the license server set up, starting from downloading the license server tools and generating the license file and setting up the server itself, But again, if for any reason the one is not able to set up or incorporate comes across the problems which are not discussed in this forum, you're welcome to kind of open a support ticket, and we're more than happy to help you out with that. Okay, let's move on. Okay, so before I again move on, the license server tools, if you have installed on a Windows side, you guys know that when license server tools are installed on your Windows system, there's 4 files created into the C program files, Autodesk Network License Manager folder, such as LMGRD, ADSK Flex, LMUtil, and LM Tools. Now, LM Tools, which is a graphical user interface of the network license server, is not available on Mac and Linux. So that here comes the challenge to them, because they have to use only the command line tools and commands to set up a license server. Now, the same commands are available for Linux users if they choose to set up a license, or ignore the graphical user interface of the license manager, LM Tools, and go and set up a server from the command line as well. So that's the challenge usually the Mac users have, and the Linux user typically they are pretty stable with on the command line, and hardly ever we receive the calls from them. Okay, let's move on now. First thing we need to check, whether your system is compatible for the license server manager you're going to install. Currently, the latest license server manager is a version 11.12, which is compatible on Mac OS X version 10.6 and higher, and it has to have a CPU core i5 or higher. So the old CPUs, the Mac-based CPUs, GPUs, they're not supported with the current license server tools. They need to have Intel CPU on the Mac. On the Linux side, the license server tools are supported on a Linux Red Hat Enterprise Linux on the version 5.0 workstation update 4 needs to be installed, and Linux 32-bit Red Hat Enterprise Linux 6.3. Having said that, so that's basically the official Linux distributions, on which the license server is supported, and like sent to us through the Flexora, the company who actually writes the code of this license server manager. Having said that, I myself have set up a license server on a Linux platform such as like Fedora Core 14, CentOS 6.2 or 6.3. So there could be like a different Linux distributions, which can support, and you can make your license server run on them fine. But since Flexera is not listing them as a supporting operating system for the license manager, we cannot stand behind it, even though it seems like they're working fine. So another thing, on your system, you need to have a network interface card, and you have to have installed TCP/IP protocol, because that's the main protocol which is used by the license manager to communicate clients and server connections. Okay, so since 2 slides before this current slide, we talked about that the license manager on the Linux and Mac doesn't have a LM tools as a graphical user interface. So we are forced to kind of get familiar with some Linux command line. So here's the majority of the commands you will need. Maybe not all of them, but here or there, we'll need to kind of use these commands if you choose to set up a license server on Mac or on Linux. So the Mac command line is very similar to the Linux command line. So the commands are interchangeable, except a few commands such as like RPM on the Linux Red Hat interface, like the RPM package installer, and installer on a Mac, which is not on the Linux part. But other than that, here's the list of commands which I would suggest you to get familiar with. And the next on the right-hand corner, there is like a sample command line, how to use it. ls is like a list content of the particular directory. So you need to kind of check and see, what you have in your directory in case you are getting some errors during setting up a license server. Very commonly used cd, which is change directory, to change the directory from a terminal, from your command line from one to the other one, to make a directory to change the permissions on a file or on a directory, to print current working directory to see actually where you are on your command line, to change to the super user, to root user on a Linux side, and to use a sudo command like super user privileges to run certain commands on the Mac side, to copy file, to move file, to remove or delete file. So cut and head, that's like what cut does is that reads the file content on your and displays the content on a terminal, and you can really quickly see what you have inside the file in case license server name is not correct, or maybe the MAC address is not exactly matches the correct MAC address. Then head usually it's also is similar to the cut, but it gives you the option to select how many lines from a file you need to read. Let's say head -5 varflex lmdsk_server.lic command will read first 5 lines from the server license file and display, which is more than enough to have an idea whether server name or MAC address is correct. So VI is a plain text editor in both platforms, whether Linux or the Mac, and it's my chosen tool to create a license file or to modify, to write the scripts, or to do any kind of configuration and to do any kind of adjustments to the profile, that profile, for example, the user profile controller text file. So the PS, that's like a process, list a running process, like reports a snapshot of the status of current running processes. PS-E, it basically gives you the everything you have, and from there you can find in case you want to kill or stop the license server, which you're not able to stop. Otherwise, by killing it, like kill -9, meaning like kill the signal, and then you have to put right up the process ID number, like 956, whatever the number will be based on the previous command, what you receive. Then a tar. A tar is like a zip file, like on a Windows side. It's both, Linux and Mac support them, and current license server are tarcast, gunzipped, and it's distributed in the same way on the Mac and Linux. Again, RPM, that's the package installer for the Linux. You need the command to install the license server or the Autodesk products, such as mine, for example, if you need to. Each product comes with the setups installation scripts, but there is also option to install certain packages. The man is like a help on a command usage. For example, man ls, if you type that on your command line, it's going to display the how can you use the ls command, all the kind of bits and pieces of it. Now let's move on. So the third step is to download the license manager. Well, here's the links available for you to download the license managers. There's IPv4, IPv6 supporting tools on both on the Mac and Linux platforms. Standard installation starts with the IPv4 installation, and if there is an issue after that, let's say, then we're going to install the IPv6. But by default, we usually install IPv4 tools. Now on the Mac side, you download the tools and you just double-click on it and it goes to installation. It does it for you. It's going to ask you for admin password during the installation. Having said that, you have also option to use the command line, which I never use on a Mac, which I must use on a Linux side. As you can see from the list of commands down on the slide, the commands are very similar. Next to each flag name, just the difference is the package names, the file names, which needs to be kind of extracted. Now, the final destination of the installed license server manager on the Mac is /usr/local/flexnet server. On the Linux side, it's going to be /opt/flexnet server. That's the main difference between these two platforms, when you're installing the license server and working on it. So it will be very good to kind of just cd to the directory, where the license server is installed, and then run the same commands on both. So that's what we're going to do now. When we go for and try to kind of, take a next step and explain it, the importance of it. So to obtain the license file, as I said, like the easiest way of getting the license file is through Autodesk.com/register. You have rights, you can log in there, you're authenticated user of your product, and you have your serial number, you have your server name, you have your MAC address, and just kind of put that information into the specific area of the page, and there you go. You'll be able to generate your license file, and it's going to be sent to you via email as well as will be displayed on your screen. Now the common questions, for some reason, the majority of the customers ask is this: oh, that's not nice. Okay, so let me kind of close that. So quick start. Okay. So maybe it's over here as well. Just give me a second, please. Okay, so there you go. So that was kind of the page I wanted to kind of show you, just the page itself, like an image. So that's, I had a link, for some reason it didn't work here. So when you generate a license, so you put the serial number first place, right? So then you register that serial number, if you have not done so, and then you select the licensing method on that Autodesk.com registration page. I think we're done distributed. Depending, which selection you make, it's the boxes they are gonna add up or be changed. So the server number of one host name, that refers to the host name, computer name of your machine, and the server one ID, that refers to the MAC address of your machine. So that's kind of like a first confusion usually the people get when they try to generate a license. But other than that, there shouldn't be any other problem. Let's go back to our slide. So that's the way to get a license file. And once you have a license file, now to get this license file, you need to get also the host ID number. So the host ID number, if you have multiple internet connections on your system, typically what it does is that FlexLM, up until now, it used to pick on the internet first available card, whether it was EN0 for Linux side or EN1 for Mac side. But these days, it's also pulls the available license, such as wireless. In case wireless, it has to be always on. Then, whatever the MAC address you pick and use to generate your license on, that MAC address must be always available, always kind of active. As soon if the MAC address goes down, for any reason it's deactive as the card, license server going to fail. And then another option is to get host name. And you can do the either LM LM host ID host name, or you just can type out host name on your command line. In both cases, it's going to work for you. So on the Linux side, again, there's not much issues, but on the Mac side, it comes up very handy working with etc host file. So etc host file, that's a text file, which keeps track of which you can use to put the pair of the IP address and computer name. And if that's happened, so it's really comes very handy on the Mac side, particularly on the Mac, when there is a share name conflicts with the host name, and host name which can change, if you can take in your system from one domain to the other domain, or from one network to the other, that could happen too. So it's gonna confuse the license server. So that's where etc host file comes handy. Okay, so now let's move on. So that's basically the license file content. I know you have overseen this, but I cannot really bypass the license file because I want to kind of stress out that like a server name is important. Whatever is here, whatever the LM host ID, host name shows up. If it's not, when you start the license server tool, when you try to start it, the license server log file will tell you that what kind of server name it looks for. Can stress out the importance of the MAC address and the port numbers. Now the port number 27004, I just added to it. It by default doesn't come with it because the license server tools, LMG, this is a master daemon, master process. It listens to the open it listens to all communications coming from ports 27,000 to 27,009. But if you have a kind of firewall enabled environment, you may want to kind of set up a specific port for LMGRD and use that particular port instead of the kind of listening and having kind of 10 different ports open. And another port is a 2080. That's a reserved port for DSK Flex, which is Autodesk vendor daemon. So these two ports need to be open, because usually when the license request comes from a client, what happens is LMGRD corrupts that, then takes the request and validates against the vendor the request is shipped away. So that vendor in our case will be a DSK Flex, so it has to connect to the vendor at DSK Flex on this particular port number, TCP port 2080, to authenticate the license request and then send the license to the customer and give the error message. So that's why these two ports needs to be DSK Flex is very important. And for any reason, if you change or you have mistyped the MAC address when you generated your license file, like I did, for example, instead of the 8, the other day, when I was trying to kind of test this out, I typed out the B, and I got error messages. So the error message basically were coming from a DSK Flex because they weren't able to run properly, because this MAC address is used to kind of read and validate all the signature and all the package content. Now, so this is not a kind of complete license file, as you can guess, because I just don't have much room here. So I just had only important parts here. Another part is a package. If you can run any of those products on the Mac or Linux license server. Like in this case, it's an AutoCAD license. So it's AutoCAD 2015, package license 14, 13, and 12 as normal, and there is an increment line as well. And from the increment, you can grab the serial number as well. So here is the serial number, for my test license, and the issue date as well, and whether the license is permanent or time bound. You can also see it here too. So this is the time bound license for a year. But in your case, if you have a permanent, it's going to have a permanent instead of the date here. And again, the host name, etc host. So keep this file handy because you may need to come to it, if you run into issues. And most likely, all the Mac users will have problems with those issues. That's etc host, when it's what solves that properly for us. Now, how to configure the license server? So once you have a license file, all right, generated from the register site, received from Autodesk. So it's going to be a plain text file. It's very important I can't stress out enough, it's very important to be a plain text file. That's why, I like the VI, because VI kind of detects all the different kind of, hidden characters, and, we cannot remove that from a command line. But you can also use a text edit if you want, but you may have to make sure that it's saved as a plain text file, and it has an extension .lic and not .txt. So the name of the file doesn't really matter, but I would suggest using ADSK underscore server.lic, because that was a kind of from down the time on the Mac side. So that was the license server name we used all the time. So all the kind of scripts which could come with the installation, or all the kind of text support articles or blog posts or any kind of help tips from Autodesk forums may indicate the ADSK underscore server.lic file, and you're going to avoid lots of confusion if you just keep calling Autodesk license network license file named as ADSK underscore server.lic on a Mac. Another important thing is PowerFlexLM folder. So by default, if you have never installed the license server tools on your system, there is probably like 99%, maybe 98, depends if other tools also have that. You won't have FlexLM folder created, but since the main products which use the license server on the Mac, these are the Entertainment Creation Suite, Entertainment M&E products, such as Maya, Motion Builder, Madbox, so that's alias products, all the alias products, which had their license file by default created into the WarpFlexLM folder. So we kept that, and I keep that as the same way. I don't change things, which can, if I change something which can introduce more confusion than coherence with the previous steps, it's going to be more kind of not helpful for you guys, So that's why, I keep the old names, in its place, so that all the tips and tricks, I'll have for you, or you find on the net again that we're all coherent to each other. So you need to put that file, ADSK_server.lsc file, into the WarpFlexLM folder, and you have to create that. Now, to create that, you need a little higher permission than a regular user permission. So on the Mac, you can do it from a command line. You can run sudo mkdir, so make directory, and then name the directory like WarpFlexLM, and then hit enter. So when you hit enter there, since you use the sudo, it's going to ask you, the terminal going to ask you to put the password. So the password you can use is your Mac administrator password, which you usually use when you install stuff on your computer. So that's, and you also have to make a note that when you type characters on a command line, you won't see typed characters. So sometimes it confuses users as well, and they think that for some reason its keyboard is not working, but it's not. So you have to make sure that you type. Just trust yourself. Just type your password and hit enter when you typed out. And if everything goes good, it's going to go to a next line. If not, it's going to give you the error message saying like a sorry, try again. So once you create this folder, then you're going to move the file WarpFlexLM to file your license server network license file into the WarpFlexLM folder. So you can do this on manually. You can do it through the command line. Since you are on the command, it's very easy to do it. So like move. Now you can, after move mv command, you see the tilde. So that the tilde is like a symbol of the home directory of the user who's logged in, and desktop, that's the desktop you are on, and that's where you saved your license file from the step 1, right? So then from there, you take this file and move it into the WarpFlexLM folder, hit enter, it's done. So your file is there. The same command line is available for, you have to follow on the Linux side. Only difference is that instead of sudo, you have to use su command, then type your root password. And you're there, and you can do the same exactly, run the same exact command like you ran before on Mac. So let's go on now. And this next step is to start the license server. So to start the license server, since command line are identical on Linux and the Macintosh, probably the best thing would be to just change directory to the directory where your license server is installed. So on the Mac, it's a USR local FlexNet server, and on a Linux, it's OPT FlexNet server. So use cd change directory command to change it to the corresponding directory of your platform, and then start the license server. Just ./lmgrd. So that means that you have to find executable command in the directory you are in. So since you are into the FlexNet server directory, that's why it comes like if on the Mac or in OPT FlexNet server directory. If you're on a Linux, that represents that particular directory. And then type like lmgrd space -c to specify the choose your license file. So it's WarpFlexLM ADSK_server.lsc, and then space -l and pass the debug log file. So space -l, it's not necessary to do it. If you do not do it, nothing problematic going to happen. You just see the debug log file information on your terminal window, and like you may get, oh, something is not working, or something is like didn't want well. So to keep it clean, so that's why probably good to kind of keep send it to the proper log file, and keep that recorded there. You can do any, you can save the debug log file in any folder, whether it's WarpFlexLM or USR local FlexNet server or OPT FlexNet server. But you have to, that's your choice. So once your license server is running, to verify that it's actually running, if you don't see any error messages there, like error codes such as like a -96, -97, -15, like this type of error messages, which usually normally you see on the Windows side as well. So you need to run the next command. So next command is lmutil. So that's lmutil command, and then lm start space lm start. Please make sure that you know this not I but L, Lima, not I as in Italy but L as in Lima. So but all lowercase. Command line is a very case specific, case sensitive. So you need to. It's not I. Okay, I'm not mixing up the uppercase letters with the lowercase letters. So if you see letter L, it's an L and not I. Okay, so /lm tool again, because we are in the same folder where the license server tools are. lm start to get the status. We want to see all the messages like -a. Then we need to choose the license server file, and then we can redirect. So now this part, so this greater sign, that redirects output of this command into the server status desktop server start.txt file. So that's going to make it easier for me to read it. Okay, so if you do not do that, what happens? You're going to see the output on your terminal window, and you may like it, you may not, but it's entirely up to you. So if you, for example, have to kind of need some help from us, like we would ask you to kind of send us server start to redirect the output of the lm start to a file and send it to us. To stop the license server, again you can use lmutil, lm down, that's a keyword, then space -c, choose the license file you want to kind of stop the server on. That's if you have like multiple servers, whichever the file is specified, that service on your system going to be stopped. As you can see, lmutil, that's like an engine of lm tools, on the Windows side and the GUI side. So for some reason on a Mac, there's no GUI for it. So that's one thing Mac users don't like, and I understand them completely. Another way, sometimes when you run /lmutil space lm down -c varflex lm and license server name, sometimes it doesn't work, or seems like it's not working. And to be 100% sure that license server is down, what you can do is you can run the ps command, like a process, listed processes, then grep, that's another command on Mac and Linux, lmgrd, and then you will see the output of the lmgrd stuff. Then you can use lmgrd, and you can find a process ID number from there, and you're going to feed it to the kill -9 command to kill it. And you have to have a kind of sudo, like a proper permissions to do that. Okay, so that's pipe means kind of pipes the output of this command into the grep, and grabs the lmgrd from all the outputs it has. Otherwise, it's going to be lots of output to kind of sort it out. Okay, so now let's move on. Now, a couple tips. Now, when you start the license server on Linux on the command line, it runs. Like on a Windows side, you have this option like start server power up, use services, right? On the Mac or Linux, you don't have that. So if you start the server once, while its system is up and running, it runs. But if you restart the system, the license server doesn't restart automatically. So to do that, there's a few things you can do. The first one is to install the older version of the license manager, such as 11.7 on the Mac. Okay, because that version came with the setup script, startup script, which for some reason is never shipped after that. So you can use that script, to start the current latest version of the license server tools as well. If you maintain the same naming conversion as I suggested, like a varflex lm and atsk_server.lsc file as a license file name. So you install the 11.7, then you install 11.12, and that's going to update properly. If you already have installed 11.12, installing 7 is not an option, but there's a way of doing that too, by removing the old version of the product, from the DB receipts folder. I'll show you that in a minute as well. Okay, so and then okay, so here is again the link to the folder relates to this particular webinar, and inside this folder, I have uploaded the DMG file for 11.7. So if you install it, you can get this script down for you. But if you don't want that to do, or for any reason you're not able to do it, or it's not accepting your system or so there is again the steps, what you need to do on a Mac. Like you need to kind of, create this file, and if you look into the file, basically what it does is like, calls USL local testnet server LMGRD, specifies the license server name. Now, so it says like USL local testnet server product license license. So based on this script, so it expects to have the product license.lse file into the flatnet server folder. So you can kind of change this one to the varflex LM folder, or you can move the license file there and name it the product license links file. That's the only thing, and that's the comes to L and writes the debug log file into the flatnet server folder as well. And so then the other options for it, and then you have to do also everything on the manually, which trust me, not fun. But there are all the steps you need to do, in case you want to do it manually. Oh, by the way, I've also shipped that files for you in that folder. Let's go there together. Oh no, okay, let's go there. See what happens. Go there. Oh, yeah. It takes its time, and then takes you there. So that's where you are. So here is the DMG file, and that's the files, script files, which you actually need to put in the proper folder. Like if in case you want to kind of move the files, you can grab these two files at your scale. That's a directory. You need to have. You have to put that one into the /library/startup items folder. And I give it the proper permission, so the rest you can follow in a permission level over here. What you have to do, what kind of permissions you have to give, how to change the kind of the owner of each product, each file or folder. So that's all written over here for you. Okay, now where we are, so we are here. Okay, but that's again the easiest way of doing that. Easiest way is to put the command line which starts the license server in a .profile file. So what's .profile? So that's some kind of file, hidden file, which lives on a currently logged in user home directory. It's not there if you do not create it. If it's created, it will become there. Usually people put in that profile any kind of scripts or programs they want to start at startup when they log in onto their system. Whether it's set up certain environments, like implement variables, or just run the one-off commands. And inside the .profile, they can kind of write up the command line, which starts the license server. And anytime you start your system, you log in onto your on your Mac OS X, it will be there. It's going to start for you automatically. Again, like so. When if you're changing the networks, it's maybe not start automatically because you may change the MAC address, not MAC address. You can change the MAC address as well in case the NIC card gets disabled, wireless to the Ethernet, or can change the server name as well, the way the system is visible. Like it does happen. For example, in this particular system, I'm working on it now and showing you the slides. If I take it at home, it gives me a host name as a share name, they match. But when I bring it back here at Autodesk, it gives me a different host name than the share name. So things happen like that. On the Mac, it's not for it. That's where comes trouble. Okay, so now let's go to the Linux side. On the Linux side, a bit easier. By the way, the PowerPoint slides, when you guys have, when I put it into the public folder after this conversation, after this webinar, in the notes section, each slide is going to have some specific information, and from there you can kind of also copy-paste scripts, when you start creating it, but you have to make sure that you do it in plain text format. and give the proper permissions to the script you create, which is like reading and executable. So on the Linux side, you just can create the file like RC. You can put the startup license server startup command into the RC local file. You just open up the file and put it there, and then start the server. And whether you're logged in or somebody else is logged in, it's gonna start for you. And alternatively, you can also create a profile file there too, and set up the license server there. So that's basically what it is, what relates to setting up a license server on a Mac and Linux. So we have another, it seems like we have probably 15 more minutes for if you guys have some questions, feel free to kind of ask those questions. We'll be happy to help. If not, I can show you a little bit in what can be done on the Mac. Like let's say we go to the command line. So for example, this is a command line, right? Player, so print working. And at the same time, you guys can ask the questions, while I'm displaying this. And David, if you hear that, like you can ask the question and share the question to us, and we can both respond to it.
Sure, absolutely. Could you do one thing first before you get too far here?
Sure.
Can you close this terminal window, and can you show them how to access the terminal window?
How to get into the terminal?
Just how to find the terminal in Mac.
Okay. So to get the terminal on the Mac, go to Finder, then go to Utilities, and there's a terminal. So on the Linux side, you just on the desktop, usually right-click on it and select Terminal. It's very straightforward on Linux. Unfortunately, I don't have a Linux here available for you guys to kind of do demo, but that's how it opens up a terminal. And once the terminal is opened up, you can type pwd, which is print working directory. So, and I am into the directory of the user I'm logged in, which is user assist. And here, for example, if I do like ls, like list content of desktop, I can no, not this one. I'm sorry, desktop, because if I head up when I put the slash, that means on a root directory, and the root directory is not a desktop. But if you want to see what's in the root directory, that's like a C directory on the Windows side. So that's what we have there. There's no home. So that's common mistakes too. When you write commands and run, I use the terminal, to make sure that resource you're calling or editing is the actual resource you would like to do it and work with. Or maybe it's even better to go to USR flex local FlexNet server. So since we are on the Mac, so that's the directory, where you have License Manager installed. So you can see here PDF file, which ships every single product installer, and then LMGRD, ADSK Flex, and LMUtil, 3 files instead of 4 on the Windows. Now, if you want to know, which version of the product you have, you can do something like, oh no, let's change the directory to it, because even though we listed the content of the FlexNet directory, we are still into the assist directory, which is the home directory, right? Now we use it on logged in, so we can do something like cd change directory to user local FlexNet server. So you can type like a couple letters from the name of your folder, and then use the tabulation, like click on tab to kind of auto-populate for you. Okay, so that's where we are right now. So we can do something like lmgrd -v. Okay, so it tells us which version of the license manager we have. Like, we have 11.12, the current one on the Mac, supporting the Mac, so that's what we have there. Now, if you want to see, whether we have a license server running right now, so we can do something like, again, we need to do that /, because that says that, executable command is inside the directory we are in. Alternatively, we can use the full path, like type out so long. So lmutil, lmstat, -a, -c, remember these commands from the slides, then var, flexlm, that's where I have my license file and hit enter. So it seems like it's running. So you can see the output over here. But what else I can do, which comes really handy is this. Like I can kind of redirect the output instead of the terminal into tilde, which is a kind of symbol representation of the home directory, then desktop, then server, so maybe start txt, okay? So it's over there, so it's on the desktop somewhere. Now what we can do is this one too, like there's many commands, you guess, if you try to like it using the command line, there's lots of kind of resources available on the internet, as well as there are lots of user-friendly forums, which can help you out with that. So you can do something like open, just to tell what you want to do, desktop. So that opens up, guess what, the desktop folder over here. And there's the server stuff, which I just created. So if I open up this file in the text editor, that's the default one, it tells me that, license server is up, this is the port number I'm using, that's the server name I'm looking at, that's the version of the ADSK Flex is running, that's a master, which means like a vendor daemon status license manager over here, the master 2012, so master means the LMGRD basically. And then it says a list kind of what products I've used and what licenses I have. Let's say AutoCAD 10 license, nothing is in use, my licenses, Mentor Ray licenses, and many other licenses, which I have in my license file. None of them are in use. Okay, so that's one way of doing it. It's much cleaner than going back to terminal and try to kind of sort up like that, and going down, and like depends, like whichever you like. It's again, you can also use head command, like I mentioned the head. I like this command very much, like -far flex lm and this license server. So it's gonna give me like the first 5 lines of the command, like over here it's like so. Now the comment sign, doesn't come with the license itself. I just put a comment sign there, like a pound -SCD ACAD 2015, telling me that there's this license available there. What I can do for if I can use also the more command. More is the command which displays the content of the file based on screen size and terminal size. If I have a little longer one, it's going to show me more than so. So for example, if you have like something like that, like var flex lm, so this is the content of the my license. I cannot edit it here, so it just kind of shows me what I have in license file. Again, what I'm saying is this line here, # -ACAD 2015. That's me to kind of like that's how I do usually myself. I put there the comment of the what license I have. And then you have the My 2015 license down below too. But if you do not do that, that's fine too, because the license you receive, it won't come with that. It just for you to kind of aid it. And then, if you click spacebar, is going to show you the rest of the license file until it cleans up. So then we can do clear. Okay, so here is library startup items. So that's a folder where you have to have ADSK NLM directory created. So let's do something like that with different flags, -L, A. So this means like show me the permissions on each file and hidden files as well. So over here it tells me that here is a output of it. So that represents the same on this folder, this directory. 2 dots represents the parent of the startup items folder, which is a library, and ADSK that represents the folder which is inside that. So how do I know that? So it precedes with D, like a directory. If it did not have a D, that means like it's a file itself. So for example, if I do something like that, ADSK NLM, so then I see something different. So I see like a directory for ADSK NLM. I can see like one directory, a second directory for the parent, which is startup items, and then I see 2 files here. startup parameters plist, and ADSK NLM. So you notice, so this is a command which actually starts the license server after rebooting it, the system. And here is the kind of permission level of it, which is read, write, executable, read, executable, read, executable. And same goes over here. Unless the files have a X executable ones, it won't work as a script file and won't do stuff for you. Yeah, you can act as like an unknown file type. Okay. So that's and then if you want to see now, for example, what's inside the ADSK NLM, you can kind of you can do VI. Let's do VI. So if the VI is a beast itself, like it comes with lots of different kind of command line parameters you can use to edit stuff inside the VI. So for example, it opens up a command in edit mode inside the terminal. So when I do VI, library, startup items, ADSK, and ADSK NLM. So there you go. So it opens up in editable mode, but I cannot edit anything unless I tell the VI to edit, which basically is said by clicking on I key, like insert. So right now I am going inside insert. Do you see here how it changed? So now I can kind of go there and change anything I want. Let's say the server name. The server name is ADSK flex server underscore LIC. Log, and then there is how to down, how to up. So I can use the system starter commands, to stop and start the license server if I want to do that too. It's not necessary, but there's many different ways of doing stuff from a command line if you have proper permissions, basically. Now to get out of it, like you click escape key, and it's going to change. It's going to remove the insert. You can see those tildes down below. Then you need to put the colon, and then if you have written something, you can type W, and then you Q like to quit it. So the quick enter. So read-only option. So because I didn't have permission to work on this file, because I'm right now working as a assist, so that's why I get this error message. But if I had used the sudo command, which I'm going to show you real quickly right now, I would have had that permission enough to change inside the file. So I put the Q like quick exclamation out, quit without changing anything, and it takes me out. Now, if I go down here, so sudo, so basically telling that users let superuser do this stuff for me, and then I'll give the command name which I want to run as a sudo. So then I hit enter and ask me for a password. So I type the password. So I typed the password correctly. I did not see anything. He did not see anything, but then I hit enter. Password was correct, so I'm inside the file. Now I can change stuff here if I want to. Let's say, I can put the space here. Like it's all, no, sorry. So put the E to go to insert mode, and hit the space bar to change something. For example, then escape, write, and quit, and I'm out. So that's worked. So if you have a proper permission, and you have to have a root permission, you can see who owns this file. Other one won't be able to kind of work on it. They can see it, read it, they can execute it, but they are not having the right permission. So right is given on a root owner of this particular file. So that's basically about how to set up a license server on the Mac. I'm seeing on the clock that we are very close to an hour, and if there's further questions, please write up the questions on the chat forum and chat option in the webinar, and we're going to look into it. Or again, we're going to have we're going to repeat this webinar in coming weeks, and we can include your questions there too, the answers for the questions there too for you. So in short, if 92% of the people have never set up a license server on Mac or on a Linux, there's no really good reason to switch to it. Use the Windows. But if you are this 8% of the people, here we are to help you if you run into a problem. So that's from my side. Then, David, do we have anything, like any questions?
But no, that's pretty
attendees would like
much
to hear
it
as
for now.
well.
That's pretty much it for now. We can keep an eye out on the forums for any more questions people may have associated with this posting, and I guess we can answer them there.
Okay, so then I'll say thank you for everybody, whoever registered and attended this webinar. And until next time, my name is Apto, and David was online helping me with this webinar as well. And thank you, and hope to see you as an attendees on the next webinars we have. Thank you.